Vietnam goes crazy for pool. The WPA drops the hammer. Team Asia asserts its dominance, and the Mosconi Cup gets wild. All today, all right now, on this edition of Billiards Digest Live.
Happy Halloween. Welcome to another episode of Billiards Digest Live. I hope you like our costumes because I'm actually Jason Bowman dressed as Mike Pinozzo because I've always wanted to do that. And this is Mike Pinozzo dressed as Jason Bowman. And we've got more tricks and more treats for you in this episode. You think they went for it?
No.
No?
I think they did go for it. I feel like we should have like a jack-o'-lantern full of Halloween candy in front of us here.
That would be great.
October's been a busy month.
Yeah,
busy
we had
month
a
for
huge,
you in particular, right?
Yeah, I was in Manila. We had a huge event in Vietnam.
Yeah.
The WPA came down with its bans on players. There was a mini Mosconi in Manila, and the real deal is just a couple weeks away.
Seems like a lot to talk about today.
There is a lot to talk about. And we're going to kick off our coverage of the past month with a World 9-Ball Tour major in the burgeoning hotbed of Hanoi, Vietnam, the final open event on the Matchroom 2024 schedule. As one of the fastest growing pool markets in the world, Vietnam is generating talented players and boasts a huge fan base of hardcore fans, thousands of whom turned out for the first Hanoi Open in 2023. 2024 was no different, with fans lining up outside the Hanoi Indoor Games Gymnasium hours ahead of each session during the 5-day event. With players like defending champion Jayson Shaw, world champion Fedor Gorst, and Spain's Francisco Sanchez-Ruiz leading the way, the competitors were swamped with autograph and selfie seekers throughout the week. At the table, all 256 players had dreams of lifting the winner's trophy in front of the year's most exuberant crowd. But while most of the favorites found their way into the single elimination final 64, the massive Asian contingent put on impressive performances, particularly the Filipino players. A quarter of the final 64 were representatives of the Philippines, with 3 advancing to the final 4. The biggest surprise was the elimination of Gorst in the round of 64. Tied at 5 in his match with Filipino star James Aranis, Gorst suffered from heat exhaustion throughout the match and was forced to withdraw, a huge disappointment for his adoring Vietnamese fan base. American hopeful and U.S. Open runner-up Shane Van Boening reached the final 16 but was stopped there by relatively unknown Filipino Harry Vergara. Team USA captain Sky Woodward bowed out in the same round, and they were soon joined by Shaw and Sanchez-Ruiz, both of whom lost in the quarterfinals. The Final Four was an all-Asian affair, with Philippine stars Johan Chua, Carlo Beato, and Jeffrey Rhoda being joined by Chinese Taipei ace Pinyi Ko. Chua, runner-up to Denmark's Mickey Kraus in the European Open and a semifinalist at the World Pool Championship, advanced to the title match with an impressive win over countryman and 3-time world champion Beato, 11-5. He was joined by Ko, who put on his own show in an 11-2 win over Rhoda. The finale pitted Chua against one of his playing idols in Ko, and Chua raced out to an early 7-2 lead in the race to 13 final, but Ko battled back to cut the lead to a single game at 8-7. Trailing 9-7, Ko had a golden opportunity to narrow the margin and put pressure on Chua, but inexplicably missed a routine 9-ball. The unexpected gift allowed Chua to reach the hill. The 31-year-old then methodically ran through the final rack, pausing briefly to collect himself before depositing the final 9 for his first WNT Open and the biggest title of his career. It was an emotional win for Chua, who's enjoyed his greatest success in 2024. The win was worth $30,000 to Chua, while Ko received $15,000 as runner-up. As you can see, Carlo Beato and Jeffrey Rhoda of the Philippines finished tied for third, with Harry Vergara, Jayson Shaw, Francisco Sanchez-Ruiz, and young Cledio Caci finishing 5th through 8th. Jason, a lot of action going on there. It was a great event.
Yeah, it looked like a great event. Really impressive turnout, only in its second year, and it looks like it's already grown to be Matchroom's largest open event, and maybe their second largest event overall to the Moscone Cup.
Yeah, after the Moscone Cup, the Hanoi Open has quickly become the event, on the WNT calendar. And it's an event that I think they hope shows other places like the U.S. Open, the European Open, the UK Open, what these events can be like with the fan base following, because they're crazy about the pool championship in Hanoi.
Absolutely. So the event looked great. Would have liked to have seen our Team USA guys fare a little bit better. I mean, not a bad showing, but would have liked to have seen them in the Final 8 or Final 4.
A lot of them reached the Final 64, just didn't get too far past that.
Yeah, obviously Federer bowing out early was a little bit of a surprise for most of us. But the Team Europe guys didn't fare dramatically better, exiting around later than some of our Team USA guys.
It was, as expected, a pretty Asian-dominant performance.
Yeah.
There were so many Asians in the field, in between the new upcoming Vietnamese players and a huge contingent of Philippine players who showed up in Hanoi. It's not surprising that the Asians really dominated play. There was, everywhere you turned, there was another Filipino beating someone, a top player, and you'd never heard of who the Filipino player was. So, it was a terrific event from that standpoint, and a great win for Chua as well.
Yeah, bit of a prelude of things to come at the Reyes Cup as well, wasn't it?
A little bit of that, a little bit of that. Of course, the Hanoi Open was significant for another reason. The completion of the unsanctioned event triggered the long-awaited actions from the World Pool Association in response to top pros participating in non-sanctioned events. The promised action from the world governing body caused numerous players to skip the Hanoi Open, including WPA's top-rated player and World 9-Ball Tour number 5, Josh Filler of Germany, as well as Austrians Albin Auschen and Mario He, Greece's Alex Kazakis, and Estonian Dennis Grabe. As for the players who did participate in Hanoi, the WPA soon after sent emails to member federations announcing a ban on those players from WPA-sanctioned events for 6 months and outlined requirements for reinstatement, including a $500 fine. The letter was followed by a list of 245 offending players. Not surprisingly, the majority of the World 9-Ball Tour's top players stayed with the Matchroom events, which are unsanctioned. In all, 22 of the WNT's top 25 players were listed on the banned list, including Americans Van Boning, Woodward, Billy Thorpe, Oscar Dominguez, Tyler Steyer, and more. The list of players still allowed to participate in upcoming WPA-sanctioned tournaments was headed by Filler and was, in large part, made up of European players, many of whom find themselves choosing WPA events due to their memberships in European national federations. Obviously, not an ideal situation for anyone, and we got a chance to get Matchroom Pool CEO Emily Frazer's take on the news following the Hanoi Open. WPA announcements, player bans, lists of players, all this kind of stuff. I think we've talked about this before, and I think mentally you kind of have WPA in your rearview mirror at this point and looking forward. At the same time, there are a lot of players out there that I know you feel for who are trapped.
Yeah.
And so how do you charge ahead, but also find ways to protect and nurture those players?
I think the best thing that I can do for the players is to do what I've been doing recently, and that is literally just full steam ahead. Because I think for a little while now, we tried so long to, let's try and do this, let's try and do that for the player. Everything that we were doing was for the players. Mm-hmm. Every conversation with the WPA, every Zoom call with the WPA, every conversation, every email was all for the players. And it's now at a point where the best thing for the players is to go full steam ahead on what we're doing. Listen, they can all do whatever they want to do. we don't mind that, and if the players are going to go and play in another event and pick up a load of money, and that's their expenses to come to the proper tour, the commercial tour, great. Then, so be it, sort of thing. But for us, and I know deep down in my heart, the best thing for me to do right now is to not listen, keep focused, stay with the tour, and to not steer off that tour. And all I would say with the players is that right now it seems really scary because an entity is attacking, essentially, and they've got us to come and lean on, to come and talk to. We help them, we help guide them through this, and we're not going anywhere. We're not going to shut up shop and go, listen, you're all banned now and see you later, we're going into another sport. We're here, we're committed, we're invested. We've just pulled off a brand new invitational event that offers opportunity for another region of the world. We've got lots of plans in for next year for more open tournaments. I know players are asking for more prize money and things like that. And I'm trying to explain to them, guys, come on now. We've only got, just like a dozen matchroom pool events. So let's focus on more events. Let's focus on building the calendar. And the players just need to trust us, because I'm okay with being like the bad guy for a couple of months in some people's eyes, because I know the long goal.
Time.
I know in the future everyone will go, oh, okay, I get it now. Because I know I've been behind the scenes. Me and my team know the truth, know the real stuff behind the scenes, and we know the right thing to do is what we are doing now.
To see the full video interview with Emily Frazer, keep your eye on the APA and Billiards Digest Facebook pages in the coming week. Jayson, what'd you think?
Well,
it was bound to happen. It was going to happen.
I feel like the saga continues here. This has now been, just shy of a year that we've been having this conversation, and it all started with the WPA saying, hey, you can't do this or else we're going to do that. And, several months into that, it looked like they had kind of extended the olive branch maybe to try to back off of what they had said. Matchroom didn't appear to really take that and do much with it. And so I think it did ultimately force WPA's hand that says, hey, we're going to go ahead and do what we said we were going to do.
We weren't kidding.
And so now it's happened. The hammer has dropped. It was interesting to hear Emily, some of the things she said there. We don't mind if the players want to go and do this or that. Seems to contradict a little bit what I know we're going to talk about happened with Josh Filler at the Reyes Cup. And I know Matchroom is not in the position of telling players which events they can and cannot go to, but on the other hand, obviously the players, depending on where they decide to go, may limit what they could do later. So in essence, it seemed a little contradictory to me, but the other fascinating thing about this to me is we've talked a lot about how the players are obviously in the middle of this and how for those top players, especially on the WNT, it makes a lot of sense to stick with what they're doing. But there is another group of players, I believe, that actually may benefit from what's going on here by sticking to that WPA and some of those events, as these other guys are now no longer allowed to play. These other guys slide down the rankings a little bit, and maybe there's more opportunity there. So it's, obviously it's not an ideal situation, but it is somewhat fascinating and obviously a big thing for us to talk about and what's going on there, right?
Yeah, talking points are always fun.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you said. The WPA did sit down with a lot of these players in New Zealand earlier this year and tried to spell out its reasons for staying with WPA events. And for a lot of players, and as I mentioned, the list of players who stuck with the WPA is predominantly European.
Yeah.
And Europe is a very strong continental federation with a lot of good, strong national federations that these players are members of, and they get funding for tournament travel. They get funding for entry fees,
right,
things like that. And so it makes the events easier for them to go to, right? And they'll be penalized if they play in unsanctioned events. On top of that, you look at a lot of the players, as the list showed, a lot of the European players who stuck with the WPA were kind of outside that top 24
right,
World 9-Ball Tour rankings. Still great players,
yeah,
but WPA events, the Predator events, China Open, Qatar is a much bigger event, but a lot of them are 64 players, right? Instead of 256, so your chances are increased.
Sure.
A lot of the WPA sanctioned events tend to have higher payouts than the World 9-Ball Tour events in that 5th through 8, 9 through 16 categories where a lot of these players might fall.
Yeah.
And so if you've got your federations paying for you to go to these events and you come out a little ahead by reaching that last 16, that last 8, it's not a bad place to be right now, at least for the interim, to take a wait-and-see attitude on what's coming up. I mean, after Hanoi, the reality is that Matchroom doesn't really have another big event, open event, scheduled till spring,
months, yeah.
right? So this gives them a pretty good window of opportunity to play in some WPA events, kind of sort out where they're at in this, and go from there. As far as Matchroom goes, I think at some point they just said, we're just going ahead with our plan. As far, we'll talk about Josh Filler, but I kind of look at that as apples and oranges in terms of, I don't think he was banned. I think they pulled him out of one event.
Right.
No one has said you can't play in any more, WNT events, things like that. So we'll see what happens with that going forward.
Yeah, and then the other interesting thing is these promoters that are kind of in the middle here. Predator being a big one. Obviously, they've got their big event coming up in Puerto Rico, which is now going to be a non-sanctioned event because the prize money comes in a little bit lower, and so you start seeing these other promoters now kind of wiggling around to make sure they're not going to be putting players in this difficult position, because obviously Predator wants the top players there. Yeah. The top players aren't, if they're banned, they're not showing up, and it's
a tough situation for everybody. And Predator's a big player in this.
Absolutely.
They've got rights to the World 10-Ball Championship, to the Women's World 9-Ball, the World 8-Ball.
Yeah.
So they want those events run, but they also want to run other events, and so they're coming in below the WPA sanctioned threshold so that other players can play in this, like this men's event in Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And this way they can get a lot of these WNT players there because they've got several bookend events with it, a mixed doubles, a champion of champions type, challenge of champions type matchup. So they can get a lot of these marquee players in. So everybody's trying to kind of feel their way through how to take this going forward, right?
Yeah, and I know the fans are sitting back saying, why can't they just put pride aside and figure this out? And it's a little more complicated than that, because you've got 12 months of the year. You've got Matchroom. I don't know how many events they have now. They seem to be creating a new 1 or 2 events every year. WPA suddenly has more events than I can recall them or being involved in. And so there's just the calendar is limited, 365 days to pull these events off. When you're talking about new events and scheduling venues, very tricky situation there. We know that all too well for the stuff that we do. A lot of these venues book up years in advance. Yeah. And so if you're creating a new event and you only have 6 months lead time, it's tough to find dates. You got to go with what you can find. And so, regardless of what happens, even if they were today say, hey, let's all work together, that overlap is going to occur. Yeah. I don't think it's possible to avoid that, and that's a big part of the conversation.
It is a big part of the conversation, and in our interview with Emily Frazer, she did mention how they want to add more events next year. So if all of a sudden you're talking about 16 events, and we're talking worldwide, right? We're talking events in Asia, events in Europe, events in the U.S., to try to balance the schedule so that everybody can get their big ticket events in when they want to and where they want to. It's not easy to do.
Yeah.
And Matchroom and Predator have both, in years past and going forward, we'll announce that we're going to have an event in May called the Spanish Open.
Yeah.
And at the time they announce it, 80% of the time, they don't have a venue selected yet. They don't actually have the dates selected yet, things like that. So it gets to be this real jockeying game between everyone and who steps on whose dates and who tried to mess up somebody else's tournament. So to that extent, it may be better for Matchroom to just march out on their own and say, this is the tour running, these are the events we're going to run. If you care to go play elsewhere, go play elsewhere. We're here when you need us.
Right, which is essentially what Emily said.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just going to go forward and, we'll see where things lie.
I don't think this is the last we're going to be talking about this.
I would be shocked if it is. I would be shocked if it is.
Well, the ripple effect of the ban was evident almost immediately, with Matchroom pulling Filler from the Team Europe lineup for the much-anticipated Reyes Cup in Manila, scheduled immediately following the Hanoi Open. Filler, who had earned a spot on Team Europe in the new event, patterned after the Mosconi Cup, this year pitting the Europeans against Team Asia, declined to comment. He was replaced on the squad by Spain's David Alcaide. Nothing, however, was going to dampen the celebration that was to take place at the Ninoy Aquino Stadium in Manila, where Asian pool fans and Efren Reyes' adoring Filipino pool base had been awaiting Asia's opportunity to put its high-powered lineup against the Mosconi Cup champion Europeans. With the event's namesake on hand and captaining a Team Asia squad that featured countrymen Chua and Beato, as well as Singapore's Aloysius Yap, and Vietnam phenom Duong Quoc Hong, the Reyes Cup paid fitting tribute to the player many simply call the GOAT. Efren.
Yeah,
Reyes Cup.
yes, this one, Reyes Cup.
Is this important to you? Why is this big?
Well, this is one, I don't believe that gonna happen. This is Efren Cups, because we find that everybody, they knows always Mosconi Cup. What happened? Where is the Asian? They always asking where is the Asian player. Maybe they gonna do it here, but I don't know. Well, what? Maybe the American and the European, maybe they come here against the Asian, but the first one, they do it the Reyes Cup here for European, and then the next one is for US.
USA?
Yeah.
So, all these years later,
Yeah.
Team Asia, Mosconi Cup, Reyes Cup in Manila. Do you feel like you want to play?
Me, no.
Right.
I'm scared. I'm ashamed. Because if I play, maybe if we lose, what they gonna say? We have a lot of good players here in Asia. So given the chance to play all the best players so that they can see.
Are you surprised by how well Asia team has played here?
Yes, yes. I was surprised to play the All Asian to select and against the All European.
But they played so well. Kwok has played very well. Yap has played very well.
They all very good because he win a tournament already. Opinion win a tournament. Carlo Biado and Chua, Joan Chua. The Vietnamese, I don't believe what happened. They getting in stroke, good stroke, and it's very good. I think it's the best here for our team, our team Asia. But this is the first time I see the Vietnam play very good.
Yeah. The always entertaining magician. And there's lots more from Efren in an extended interview, which also will be posted to the APA and Billiards Digest social media platforms in the coming week. As for Efren's acknowledgement of how well his squad performed, the Asian fivesome certainly did well. Not surprisingly, the opening day saw some nerves, with Team Asia frittering away a 4-0 lead in the event opening team match and losing 5-4. But fielding a surprising lineup that had both Yap and Duong playing singles matches in the opening session, the Asians bounced back with 3 wins over the next 4 matches to close out the day with a 3-2 lead. The Asians then asserted their dominance on day 2, shocking the Europeans with 4 straight victories to sail to a 7-2 lead. And with 2 more wins on day 3, play was halted after just 3 matches to assure a 4th day. The Asian secret sauce was the duo of Yap and Duong. On paper, the weakest players in the Asian 5, but at the table, clearly the stars of the week. The final day saw a spirited fight from Europe's Jayson Shaw, who won a pair of singles matches, but a doubles win from Ko and Duong put the Asians 1 win from victory, and up to the table stepped Yap, who coolly cruised to a 4-1 lead over Francisco Sanchez Ruiz, and then authored a decisive run-out to the delight of the Asian faithful.
Awesome Asia on the brink.
At the same time, I was like, my mind was just really focused on the table. You know, I never had a feeling like this before, where like, I mean, in quite a long time, you know, it's just me and the balls. I really, there was nothing going through my mind.
I can't get over the 4 smallest guys in the room picking up Aloysius Yep after that 9-ball. But Yep was clearly the event's MVP, winning 3 doubles matches in both of his singles matches, while Team Asia was equally dominant in racks won during the tournament, winning 74 racks to Team Europe's 57. The Singaporean talked about the pressure and joy of playing in the first Reyes Cup for Team Asia.
It's definitely different, you know. You have your teammates that you don't really want to let them down too. So it's not just like a solo thing, but also you know that you also need to play good. It's not just for our teammates, you know. It's for the whole Asia as well. So, like for me, every day when I see the word Asia on my shirt, you know, it kind of gives me a lot of pressure, but I'm enjoying it, and my teammates really carried me through too. We all had really fun, a lot of fun.
Now, while Reyes was largely the titular head of Team Asia, it was Chua who masterminded the Asian strategy to take down the Europeans, making bold moves throughout the event.
You played the leadership role this week. I mean, Efren was the captain, but you were making the lineup, you were encouraging. Do you like that role?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's to be honest, I really do believe in my insights. I know it's not always right, but I really do believe it. I do the 2-team event in Taiwan versus Philippines, the Asia Supremacy as well. I'm the one who's taking over with that one, so I got both win. We both win on that one, so I really do believe my insights, and I always look around and try to feel the vibes of the players, my players, and everything stuff. I'm good at that, I think, in myself. So, yeah, I really like that role.
And unaccustomed to defeat, the vanquished Europeans nonetheless were quick to offer praise for the first Reyes Cup champs.
Overall, I think, you know, the best team won. Disappointed to lose, but, you know, we didn't give in. We kept fighting till the end, and that's what, you know, great teams do. They fight till the end. They never give up. So I'm proud of these guys for trying their heart out in the last day today.
The Reyes Cup was a spectacular event, and following the successful inaugural running of the Cup, Matrim's Frazer found herself looking ahead to what the event can do for pool in Asia.
Yeah, and I think I went into this very much like this has got to be the Mosconi Cup for Asia. And then as each day happened, and especially going into the last day, I was very much like, oh no, this is its own event. This isn't the Mosconi Cup. It might follow the same format, but it's completely different. You know, the Vietnamese fans in Hanoi were very different to the Mosconi Cup fans. Like, it is a more respectful audience here, which I actually really love. There were times where the European fans were actually like a little bit sharky on some of the Asian players' shots. And I only heard that because I was where I was sat. And I actually really didn't like it. And I'm sorry, European fans, but I think because I've spent so much time in Vietnam coming into the Philippines, it is a more respectful audience. You know, London is going to be completely different. But that's what I like about these events. Every event has its own identity. Yeah. And I don't want the Reyes Cup to be the Mosconi. It's a different audience. It is a different vibe. It's a different atmosphere. And yeah, you know, it took a couple of days for them to find their voice. And I think maybe Team Asia really felt the pressure last night, right, because the fans were engaged and it felt warmer in there. There were more people in there. There were over 1,500 people in that arena. But now Team Asia have had a little bit of the taste for that. And when they tune in to watch the Mosconi this year, they'll be already thinking about the Reyes Cup ahead of the next. So we're not trying to copy the Mosconi. I think Reyes needs to find its own identity.
And what does the Reyes Cup mean for Asia, for this part of the world?
It's their own invitational now that they can work towards. You know, every player last night who was watching, and that is an American player. We all know Fedor was straight on social media saying, oh, you know, Europe are going to lose twice this year. The USA players, the European players who all would have been watching that last night saying, I wish I was there.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I could have won that point and we could have beat Asia, because the European team want to beat Asia. And then every Asian player who sat there, they go, finally, it's not just a World Cup of pool, the Masters, you know, Premier League pool, those invitational events. They finally have something that is so prestigious in a team environment that they can look forward to. You know, Alyosha Yap, I said to him on day one, we were coming, like, obviously their spirits were a lot higher because they were in the lead. But I said, is this like what you imagined? He was like, no, it's even bigger.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's going to spark that talk amongst the other players. And that came through the television last night and the last couple of days, and on social media. Everyone has seen how big this event is. And every Asian player will be looking at this going, how do I qualify next year? And you already look at it and you go, wow, how is this even going to, you know, pan out?
Jayson, great event in Manila. It was fun to be at for a first-time event. It was terrific. And I like what she said, and the players all said, what this is going to do is really ratchet up the level of interest in players and in fans in Asia. Now they become part of this equation, this 12-month cycle of the race for the Reyes Cup and who we're going to play and all that. So a lot of opportunity here, fun event. It will continue to grow. It's going to be in Manila for at least the first 5 years. And so, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to really build some support there. And then you can take it under. You can take it to Hanoi, where you're building this enormous fan base as well. And so, you know, a lot of positives come out of that event.
Yeah, and hats off to Matchroom. I mean, the Reyes Cup is something that's been talked about for a number of years. Back into probably 10 years ago, as the USA was struggling against Team Europe, people said, well, maybe the Asian team would be a better fit. But now we have two things to look forward to, and so congratulations to them for making that a reality, bringing that event to fruition. I liked what Emily said too about the fact that it's not the Mosconi Cup. While there are a lot of similarities, it's going to be something different. It's going to have its own identity, and it's going to grow into something. I would have thought I would have enjoyed much more watching Team Europe get it handed to them by Team Asia, but I think I was having like PTSD of memories of watching Team Europe do this to Team USA, and the whole time I'm thinking, wow, if Team USA makes that trip next year, what does that result look like? Because they really did dominate, the event, and perhaps appropriate there in the Philippines for the first time. But like she said, 1,500 players. 1,500 attendees for a first-time event. Yeah. You go back 30 years or 31 years to the Mosconi Cup, there was not 1,500 ticket-buying fans there to watch that event.
There were 200 kids who skipped school to go to the Mosconi Cup in the middle of the afternoon is what
so
it was.
it's pretty impressive that quickly. And I do kind of wonder what that will look like as the Asian fans start to kind of get used to because it's a different kind of crowd, right? But you do have the Europeans, and it took, with the Mosconi Cup, it took years for the American fans to kind of adopt what the Europeans were doing. And so we'll see if the Asian crowd does the same. I know you were in Manila. I'm curious what you thought from your perspective.
It took them a couple days to find their voice, to get loud. They're passionate pool fans, so it's not like, watching Wimbledon and people are just clapping their hands nice and politely between shots. They want to get into it, and they just have to learn. And by the last day, they were loud. Yeah. You could tell in the video when Aloysius ran out that last rack. they were into it, and so now they know what that feels like, and the anticipation for next year, and the people who watch it on TV will want to be in that crowd next year to witness the same thing, and that's how you build these events. And I do like that it has its own identity as well. I mean, I think ideally, if you're a Matchroom, if you're anywhere, if you're Predator, you want all your events to have individual identities.
Yeah.
Right? They're all special for a different reason. They bring out a different crowd. They have a different format, whatever the case is. That's all good. It makes them all interesting. So it was, it was a really fun event. Not accustomed to seeing Europe take its lumps, and I heard European players say, a couple of days, just now we know what the Americans feel like.
Great.
Because, as good as the European players are, and they're giant killers, once that ball started rolling downhill, it was hard for them to stop it. I mean, they just couldn't get their games back together. They couldn't get their psyche back together. It's not easy. So, U.S. fans should realize that the Europeans know what the U.S. players feel like now. Yeah. And the fans should understand that it's no matter how good a player you are, if things start going sideways, it's hard to it's like turning a battleship. It doesn't turn on a dime.
Right. Yeah, and it's a great showcase for the talent that's coming out of Asia, whether it's the Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore. It's impressive. It's impressive. It's a little scary for those of us that are rooting for the USA guys with all the talent coming out of there, but certainly impressive and a great opportunity for those guys to showcase their talent on a big stage like that. So,
and Emily did say in the interview that she hasn't decided yet who will play next year.
Right.
She's kind of leaning towards alternating for the first couple of years, which I think is a smart move, because, as we know from the Mosconi Cup, the lopsidedness of the score does not diminish interest in the event. And so U.S. and U.S. has so many ties to Filipino pool. U.S. has always had a big presence in the Philippines to start with, but when all the Filipino players started traveling international, they came to the U.S. So there's that natural kind of understanding, rivalry, acceptance of U.S. and Philippine and Asian players. And I think that if the U.S. went over next year, it would be a huge crowd.
Yeah, and I really love some of the way they did the matches. More team matches, more doubles, less singles.
Yep.
I'm hoping to see some of that carry over to this year's Mosconi Cup, because I think that's, that team concept really embodies what happened there. And so
I think
like
that they were really
that.
pleased with the way the new format worked out. I think we'll see the identical thing in Orlando.
Excellent. Looking forward to it.
In the meantime, if Team Europe wants to right the ship ahead of Mosconi Cup, and I'm all opposed to that, they may want to heed the advice of our instructional guru, Double J Jeremy Jones, who's here now with another installment of Coach's Corner.
Well, hello again, everyone. I'm Jeremy Jones, and welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner. And what we'll be going over in this episode is the draw stroke. Of course, everything, just like anything in pool, everything's so vast, it's hard to cover them all. But we're going to go over just a few key things to keep you in line with the draw stroke, hopefully make things easier and maybe not so stressful. So first couple things I want to talk about with the draw stroke is first understanding some things. When we draw the ball, and imagine a long draw shot, no one really draws the cue ball all the way back. That's not really what happens. When we draw the cue ball, we create spin that creates momentum where the cue ball actually rolls back. That's why you see most of the top players, when they move the cue ball, it does move a long ways, but it's not really moving fast, just because, again, we create spin, it creates momentum, and carries the cue ball into position. But a lot of the draw stroke, just like many other times in the game, we want to really help it. So if we look back at some past episodes about tempo, effortless stroke, and really connecting the backswing with the downswing, the biggest one, or there's a couple of them really, but the couple biggest ones, I guess, for the draw stroke is, again, to take off a little fast going back, which creates a little bit of a fast movement starting downward. So remember, the real speed's going to be there. Just try and still feel the rhythm. That way we can start off a little calmer and we can accelerate the cue to create power rather than just feeling the power in our hand. Now, to go over a couple things about the draw stroke, I'm going to set up this first shot on the 11. And to give you some perspective, if anyone in the world shot the 11, the cue ball is going to move no matter what because it has angle. So when we talk about moving the cue ball in positions to where we want, two ways to do it when we swing the cue. One is with swing speed, and the other one is with tip position, which creates spin. So here, we have a shot that already has a lot of angle. So we can't totally eliminate swing speed altogether, but we got to realize that swing speed is kind of already there in the shot. It's going to move anyways. So now when we talk about drawing the ball off of a little bit thinner angles, it's about gripping the cue ball. So, you know, if we had a door handle right here and I went like that, I may not grab the door handle at all. But if I went in there calmly and grabbed it, I'd grab it easily and thoroughly with no mistakes. So kind of imagine that as well with your pool swing. We don't want to creep in on the door handle. We have to have a little bit of speed, but I want you to mainly think about rhythm. So I'm going to shoot one shot here on the 11. I'm just going to use a low with a little outside English, and I'm going to come back 2 rails into the position where the cue ball started from. But I just kind of want you to see the tempo of the swing. You won't really see a ton of speed. Now, the other thing that's very important, because we always want to try and eliminate hitting at the cue ball. A hitter of the cue ball, when they draw, they'll swing and retract the cue because the shot's basically over for them once they strike the cue ball. And they do everything at impact as well. So we want to imagine never finishing the stroke. Always just continue it into the felt. That way, we complete the swing. We're not really quitting and hitting at impact. And, you know, there are a lot of people talk about the follow-through in pool. Just keep it simple and just understand the follow-through itself. All it does is make impact its purest. That's it. So again, I'm going to shoot one, just see the tempo in the swing. Now you'll see my tip position here is going to be pretty low. So we're going to talk about that after this shot on the 11. So again, this shot moves on its own. We don't have to put a ton of effort. And then you can see really quiet, not a big, massive pounding, you know, hit at impact. That tells you that I just kind of stroked through the ball and got a lot out of it. So if you noticed right there, I had a very low tip position. Now this is something I'm going to explain that's very, very important and I think necessary really to get the most out of the draw stroke. So I'm not going to shoot this 9 ball. I'm just going to show you the angle of the cue stick and how low the tip is. So here you can see there's a little downward angle on the cue stick itself. We want to stay away from being level on the bottom of the ball. When we first start playing pool, level is preached to us, and it's a good thing because when we first start, we're all over the place with the cue as kind of fun players. But as we start to play more and get better, we realize we use angles on the cue to enhance things and actually make for a better performance. So when we have an angle, or let's say when we're drawing a ball, first off, especially when we're putting a little speed, but when we're drawing the ball, try and use your firm bridge and don't let the bridge lower with the cue stick so much. A lot of people really want to lower the bridge trying to get the cue stick more level. And actually that's what promotes scooping the ball. Scooping the ball for most parts is just like deflection. It's all about pressure. So if you'll notice, when I'm down on the ball with my firm bridge, that naturally makes an angle on the cue stick without me having to enhance the backside. And if you look at my tip at the ball, I'm drawing the ball with the top of the tip. That's why we have them round on the side so we can use more of the edges. And what happens also is when you're using the top part of the tip, well, you're not putting much pressure on the cue ball. It's when we start using the center of the tip, the entire mass of the cue gets into that position on the cue ball, and it better be in a pretty good position or things could go a little bad, and I'll explain. So when we get a little level, or that's not the most common mistake when we scoop the ball. When we scoop the ball, we get a little quick from the top. We break the elbow down on accident or a little early. the cue levels out and very easy to put too much pressure on the bottom of the ball. And when you do that, like I said, it's like deflection. If we hit on the right, it deflects to the left. If we hit on the left, it deflects to the right. We put a ton of pressure on the bottom, it's only got one way to go, which is up. So try to keep an angle when drawing the ball. Don't have to go crazy with the angle. You don't really want to try and jack it up. Use your bridge to create the angle, if that makes any sense. And also, say we're putting low right on the ball, like I did here on this last one. And we talk about deflection. Well, if I have a level cue stick hitting that low right on the ball, not only do I have a little chance of scooping it, but I'm going to deflect a lot more out to the left with that right English because the cue is more level. So again, a little angle makes for a tighter deflection, which means we arrive with more spin once the cue ball reaches the object ball. And I think just it enhances the performance of the draw stroke. So keep that in mind. And of course, tempo's number one. That's the one that's going to make us maintain the most. The last thing I want to go over about the draw stroke is when we're near the rail. And this is something that I almost have to remind myself sometimes. And again, this involves the angle of the cue stick. So once I start to elevate the back end of the cue, everything gets enhanced. Just like if I was going to shoot a masse, I could go dink and the ball would just zip down the table because we put more pressure from the top of the cue ball. So now when you're on the rail, ignore that real low part of the cue ball because we have a ton of angle. So basically the angle's creating a lot of spin on the ball to where we don't have to go quite as low. Now we do need to get a hair below center, but we don't, it's easy to make the mistake and assume it's just like a regular draw stroke when our hand's out on the table. So remember, this angle being so great in the back really enhances everything. We don't have to go quite as low with the tip. So like right here, I'm barely below center, and you can see I could draw the ball pretty easily. So tempo wasn't the best right there. So again, that's number one. So for your draw stroke, try and keep a normal bridge, understanding there will be a little bit of an angle on the cue stick, and everyone's angle is a little different. Try and stay away from really jacking the back end of the cue up. We want it as natural as possible. And then again, tempo is the key, and hold the finish.
Always great stuff from Double J.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to discuss today?
Just that little event coming up in Orlando in the next month or so.
Yes, we do have the Moscone Cup coming up in Orlando, November 30th to December 4th. And buckle up, U.S. fans, because this is going to be big. How big?
So, Moscone Cup, regardless of who's playing,
Yeah.
Moving from Las Vegas to Orlando, new setup. It's always a little bit tricky when you get into a new arena, a new city, a new town. Expectations always high. Ticket sales are through the roof.
Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about the Moscone only because it's so Shane's now, because obviously with the Hall of Fame stuff,
I got his email yesterday.
he's literally just like, I need this many tickets, and me and Phoebe are like, oh my God, how are we going to be able to cater for this? Because we genuinely don't have any seats left, from the Matchroom standpoint. Right. Whatever is on sale and whatever is there, that is it. One of the European fans come up to me yesterday and was like, look, I couldn't get a ticket and it's gone on a resale and things like that. And I'm like, this is the nature. I can't only imagine how much a Taylor Swift.
Not add any seats? Was the
no,
arena?
There's height of the arena,
right.
and
so
the
maxed out on what you can do in there.
Listen, if the fans are happy to all sit on the floor in chaired seats like the boxing, then I can get 8,000 people in there. But there needs to be
I think they would at this point.
To be
the
fair,
people looking for tickets, I think they would sit on the floor with their legs crossed.
There's a point where we're going to have to make that transition into how the darts or the boxing do it with big screens, and it's going to be like a Marmite moment. It's either going to be a really great decision or an awful decision of mine when we switch into that arena to try and get over 5,000 people in, because everyone's so used to the sitting over the top of the pool table. But, that's something that we have to work on. But Moscone is going to be something spectacular. I think the arena setup will be really cool. We've obviously got lots of plans in the making at Carib, and it's going to be a really lovely resort. Honestly, like I keep saying how lovely the resort is. Like the rooms are wonderful. I think you're like 15 minutes from Disneyland, so whatever players are going to be there, they're going to be on a roller coaster. I'm sure we'll be doing a little feature with them. It will be our biggest audience. Our biggest ever live audience.
Now, more than 3,000 fans are expected in Florida for the 31st Moscone Cup, where Team USA has visions of turning around its disastrous showing in 2023 and handing it to Team Europe. While each team still has one wild card to announce, Team USA knows it will send world champion Fedor Gorst, two-time world champion Shane Van Boening, two-time Moscone Cup MVP Skylar Woodward, and WNT regional title winner Tyler Steyer up against its European counterparts. And Team Europe? All eyes are on Matchroom's social media feed, with speculation running rampant about Josh Filler's inclusion following his removal from Team Europe for the recent Reyes Cup. With Filler, Team Europe is still a heavy favorite. Without him, it certainly would put Team USA in a better mood ahead of the event. Matchroom boss Frazer addressed the Josh Filler situation for us.
Talk about the Team Europe Moscone Cup lineup. Josh obviously was withdrawn, which was a very interesting term from this event. You know, what can you or do you want to share about that? And two, what you know, how close are we to knowing if Josh Filler is going to be in Orlando?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think obviously this week we've just been so buried deep into the Reyes Cup and making sure that that event is successful. Dick, we've done that. And I think the next moves now is just to get back home and speak with Joshua. Like I said, when Melina come and sabotage me at the Hanway Open, he's still not forgiven for. We haven't had an opportunity to sit down and chat with Joshua, and I think that's the right thing. So, as I said before, as it stands, nothing's changed for the Moscone, and it's just a case of we just, you know, sit down and speak with Joshua. But we've just been focused on the Reyes Cup this week.
Filler might be a question mark, but in the meantime, Jayson Shaw, Eklund Kachi, and rookie Mickey Kraus of Denmark are certainties. Of course, the final wildcard spot has been a hot topic for both teams, and Team Europe captain Jayson Shaw spoke about his choices following the Reyes Cup.
So now you're coming up on the Moscone Cup where you're going to be captain. What did you learn this week about, you know, being captain, about the team that you can use moving forward?
Obviously just take all the experience from Carl and how to, you know, get the guys ready for their matches, you know, just it's all about having fun as well, you know. You got to enjoy it. If you're not enjoying it, then it's not good to be in there, right? You got to enjoy it. You got to let yourself go, let yourself play your game. Don't worry about, you know, everybody else. You got to worry about them at some point, but play your game, you know, go out there, let your arm go. It's tough, obviously, playing in under those conditions, with TVs on you, TV cameras, the fans, a couple of things not going right for you, you can get down on yourself, but that's why we have a team. We back each other up, you know what I mean? And we try and get that confidence going into them. Even if we lose a match, we try and, like, keep them positive and, you know, don't worry about it. It's only one game. We're all going to make mistakes, right? Everybody's going to make mistakes, so you can't just blame one person. So it's all about keeping them in that right frame of mind and believing that 1 point doesn't mean anything. There's always time to come back. There's plenty more matches. And, yeah, I feel going into the Moscone, it's going to be different. The atmosphere is right from the get-go, and that's what we need. And like I said, I got Kachi, I got Mickey, I got myself. Obviously, Josh is in there for now. And then I've got a tough decision to make on the last one. It's between the Spanish guys. But no doubt in my mind, by the time it comes there, I'm hopefully going to pick the right guy to come in and seal the team.
As for Team USA, the battle for the final spot appears to be between tour regular and three-time Team USA player Oscar Dominguez and fiery Billy Thorpe, who has not played for Team USA since 2020 and only recently returned to regular competition, but won the Battle of the Bull in Virginia. What's your take on all these wild cards?
Well, there's a lot to talk about there. First off, you've got this event moving to Orlando for the first time. Emily
Right.
said 3,000. I think she said the largest in-person crowd they've ever had.
That's
I assume that
including
includes
Mosconi
over
Cups
in London,
at Ali Pally. So,
which is very
yeah.
impressive and not a
US is
surprise.
stepping it up.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's a huge state for pool. Obviously, Orlando in November, late November, great place to be. So, should be a great venue, great environment as always. But yeah, that big question looming out there about Josh Filler. Will he be there or won't he?
You have any thoughts?
It's anybody's guess. I mean, if I was betting on it, I would say probably not at this point, just on the fact that they pulled him out of the Reyes Cup. I don't know that much will have changed between now and then, other than maybe some conversations between the two of them. Leaving him out of Team Europe certainly bodes well for Team USA, I believe. So it's hard to say, you know. I mean, it's really between he and Matchroom obviously to sort that out. But I don't see that anything will have really changed in terms of what's happened leading up to the Mosconi Cup, right? So again, just some decisions to be made. But for Team Europe, as Jayson Shaw said, I mean, you've got David Al-Kaidi, you've got FSR,
Yeah, so
you've got a lot of really strong options there.
He's looking at those two options. One of those two will be his wild card.
Right.
And the other one, if Josh gets pulled out, would go into that automatic third spot.
Right.
So he could end up rolling into Orlando with the same team that he had in Manila,
Right.
which makes Manila a really beneficial trip for them.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, from a U.S. player standpoint, you like seeing that Europe was vulnerable in Asia. You like seeing that they, you know, once they lost their way, they couldn't find their way back. So you know that if you put pressure on them, that can happen to them,
Sure.
just like it happens to you.
Yeah.
By the same token, Mickey Krause got his feet wet.
Yeah, it's a nice warm-up, yeah.
Guys like Kachi and FSR, who did not play well in Asia, I guarantee are home right now, sharpening their games to not play as poorly when they get to Orlando. So, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I think it was 2018 or 19 when Team USA got the warm-up against Team Russia the
Right.
one year. And
Both years.
I think, yeah, Team England
one,
another
yeah.
year. And so, you know, Team USA was, and obviously the environment wasn't the same, probably more similar at the Reyes Cup to what they'll experience in Orlando. So yeah, in that respect, I hate that they had that opportunity, especially the rookie Mickey Krause. But you know, Team Europe, whether Josh Filler's there or not, is still going to be a loaded team. There'll still be a favorite to win, regardless of which five are there. But would not hurt my feelings one bit if they decide to withdraw Mr. Filler from the Mosconi Cup as well. So
yeah, no, it will be an interesting event. You know, certainly as Jason even pointed out. While Reyes Cup may have been a nice little warm-up, the atmosphere in Orlando is going to be Reyes Cup Day 4 on steroids.
Yeah.
So, so I think, you know, we can look for, you know, a little more quaking out of the Europeans, out of a Mickey Krause, you know, than we may have thought about.
Yeah.
In the meantime,
Team
give
USA,
me your thoughts on Team USA.
Well, you've got two strong candidates in Oscar Dominguez and Billy Thorpe, and I say strong based on their history in the Mosconi Cup. I think Billy probably has had more success in terms of the team's success at the Mosconi Cup than Oscar, but fairly even numbers on the year when you look at some of the numbers you put together on prize money.
Well, it's actually our
tournaments.
statistician, Richard Walker, who comes up with these great numbers. And as you see, you know, Oscar, the biggest difference is Oscar played in 20 events this year. So he was out there putting in the time, putting in the effort. You know, you have to give him props for that. He played in 20 events, almost double what Billy played in.
Yeah.
Matches won, 77 and 29 is a match record.
Yeah.
You know, Billy was only 46 and 20. So, you know, Rack won, the same type of thing. So certainly from a statistical standpoint, Oscar, you know, had you know, certainly put in the effort and had some good results.
Yeah. The thing that stands out to me about Oscar when you look at who they have played in some of these tournaments, Oscar having beaten, you know, the majority at one point or another of Team Europe members.
Yes,
you know,
he's got a head-to-head win over Al-Kaid, Filler, Shaw, FSR.
Yeah.
You know, John Mora,
Sophie.
Max,
I mean,
just a great. I mean, he won some big head-to-head matches this year.
2 of those being semifinal matches.
Right.
Semifinals. That's a big stage. And Billy obviously had some wins, but not nearly as impressive. The
No,
victories that
I
he had.
mean, Neil Fayan, Sanjan Pelovanovic, very good, big win there.
Yeah.
Vitaly Patsura, great player. John Mora, good, but not what you would call 5-star wins.
Yeah.
So, still the point that I try to get myself to remember is that on merit, Oscar Dominguez certainly had the stats.
Right.
But merit is what gets you one of those first 3 automatic spots, and he didn't get one of those. Right. So the final 2 spots are wild card picks, and they're wild card for a reason. It gives the captain carte blanche in picking someone he thinks fits better with the team, is playing better at the time. There could be a host of reasons. Everybody points to Billy's close relationship with Sky as being, I'm going to do this pat on the back for my buddy and get him a payday. I would give Sky a little more credit than that. I think that if Sky picks Billy, it's because he thinks Billy is going to be a difference maker to the team makeup.
Yeah, I think you're right there with the intangibles that Billy would bring. Obviously, you mentioned he does have a close relationship with Sky, and that could come into play in terms of doubles play. But, with Sky captaining the team this year, really, if you look back at the last few years, Sky is the rah-rah guy of Team USA.
Yeah.
Right? And now
Especially
he steps...
Billy wasn't in the last couple of years, so
Exactly.
Sky had to take that role.
And so now Sky's got to step into the role of both captain and player. He's going to have to pace himself a little bit more, and I don't know that it makes sense for him to be the one out there pounding his chest and riling up the crowd. And as much as I like Oscar and what he's done this year, I think Billy probably fits that particular role of rah-rah guy a little bit better, especially in that environment. He seems to kind of thrive with that crowd and the pumping of the chest. And
let's face it, it's races to 5.
Yeah.
And you only play 3 or 4 matches,
Yeah.
A Mosconi Cup. So you're not asking Billy Thorpe to go out there and win the world championship in a 256-player field of race to 11, right? So big difference in how it performs. Does Billy still have the firepower and control himself enough to win a race to 5 a couple of times? I would say yes. So again, either way, tough decision for Sky. He's going to get barbecued and social. Either way he goes on this, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, the real determination of whether he made the right choice will be made around December 5th, right?
You're exactly right. And I go back to the Reyes Cup where Johan Chua was picking the teams for Team Asia, and on the first day he put Kwok, Duong and Yap out in singles, which was a big roll of the dice because you could get yourself in a big hole on day 1. And they won both singles matches, and it got them started, got them to lead on the first day, and then the second day when they hit their heavy hitters coming in, they rolled over them. So bold moves, are genius when they work.
Yeah. Well,
and you're going to get tortured if they don't work.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see if Matchroom announces the match format before these selections have to be made, because again, what we saw in the Reyes Cup, more doubles matches, more team matches, right? And does that impact Skyler's decision on who he takes, knowing that, okay, it's not going to be as many singles matches, it's going to be more team matches. Who plays better as a partner?
Right.
So again, like you said, a lot of tough decisions for Sky to make. Probably going to be between Oscar and Billy. And, we'll see what happens. No determination yet of when the decision will come. No. Obviously, it's got to be made here in the next week, 10 days or so. I mean, the clock's ticking, right? We're only a little over a month out now. So, we'll be waiting, excitingly waiting for the announcement.
Yeah, no, it's great social media stuff.
Yeah.
Keep everybody on the edge of their seats.
For sure.
And we're all looking forward to that Mosconi Cup.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And while the Mosconi Cup starts in November, the end of November, there are some events beforehand, 4 big ones coming out of Predator, including the WPA Women's World 10-Ball Championship in Puerto Rico, along with the Puerto Rico 10-Ball Open, a non-sanctioned open 10-ball event. They also have a mixed doubles invitational and a challenge of champions in there. So 4 great events coming up in Puerto Rico. followed by the International 9-Ball Open, which kicks off the 2025 season for Matchroom points, World 9-Ball Tour points. And then, of course, the Moscone Cup, immediately followed by the Qatar World 10-Ball Championship.
Immediately like the next day.
Immediately like the next day.
That's
Immediately
interesting
like you better
timing.
hustle and get there.
Yeah, that's a long flight. I was trying to do the math. I guess it's, you mentioned though, it's the qualifier rounds kick that off. So
yeah,
a player like Josh Filler could potentially.
He could get there on the 8th
Okay.
and wouldn't start before then. So,
Okay.
so he's got time to get there
So
if he wants to play both.
Don't read too much
Don't
into
read
that
too
date.
much into
Hasn't necessarily ruled him out yet. So that'll definitely be a Matchroom decision, I would think.
That is going to do it for us today. For my partner, Jason Bowman, I'm the real Mike Panozzo. Thanks so much for joining us today. May all your shots be hangers, and we'll look forward to seeing you again next time on Billiards Digest Live.